Chapter 2732. While Luo Qingtong was thinking, Yi Qianqian's voice rang out. "I'll call Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the rest over," he said in a low voice. Yi Qianxian also sensed the changes in the abandoned continent outside. They were in the Blood City at the moment and were not affected by the turbulent waves of the Spirit Ocean. But the scene outside was completely different. Yi Qianxian did not bring Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the rest because he was in a hurry to chase after Luo Qingtong. Now he had to bring them over. As for leaving the abandoned continent, he did not consider it at all. After all, the abandoned continent had caused such a big commotion, it must have attracted the attention of the people outside. If they appeared outside the abandoned continent, they would definitely be besieged. It must be because of this reason that the huge teleportation formation in the Blood City was revealed after Luo Qingtong got the blood bracelet. It was so that she could leave this place smoothly. If so, why should he take the risk? Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded, "I'll go with you." Luo Qingtong was also a little worried about Chu Lingfeng, Gui Feng and the rest. Chu Lingfeng was still fine. There was a strong person from the Tianfeng Chu clan guarding outside, nothing would happen to him. But it was different for Gui Feng and the rest. What's more, the people from the Tianfeng Chu clan were bound to be negligent. Thinking of how Chu Lingfeng attracted so many people's attention in the Tianfeng Chu clan, maybe someone wanted to take advantage of the changes in the abandoned continent to kill him. Luo Qingtong thought so and immediately wanted to go out with Yi Qianxian. Anyway, after they brought them over, they could leave through the teleportation formation directly. It was not troublesome. Okay. Yi Qianxian nodded and did not say anything else. He was also worried about leaving Luo Qingtong here alone. If she disappeared in front of him again, that feeling would drive him crazy. "Let's go." He held the girl's waist and suddenly paused. Then, he said to Luo Qingtong, "What about the sex change medicine you took before? Take it out and eat it. Also, cover your face. Don't let others see you." At this moment, the young girl's skin was like jade and her hair was like a waterfall. She was as beautiful as a peony in the mortal world and as delicate as a peach in March. Especially that devilish and domineering aura of hers, it was even more tempting. There were hundreds of red flowers in this world, but Luo Qingtong was the most unique and stunning flower. If possible, Yi Qianxian did not want anyone to see Luo Qingtong like this. She was his woman, from head to toe, down to every single hair on her body. No one is allowed to touch it. Yi Qianxian was the only one who knew how possessive he was. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong's domineering aura and extraordinary abilities, and that she was definitely not the kind of woman who could only rely on others to survive, he might not be able to resist the urge to imprison her by his side so that only he could see her. However, his young girl was a beautiful phoenix soaring in the sky. Once her wings were broken, she would cry blood and die. Therefore, Yi Qianxian could only suppress his possessiveness and accompany her as she grew, let her soar, and even turned into a parasol tree that she could rest on. All for the sake of letting her live a better life. He could not bear to let her suffer, be sad, or be unhappy at all. Therefore, he would rather suppress himself. However, since Luo Qingtong had the sex change medicine and could cover her face, Yi Qianxian was naturally willing to hide her. When she heard his words, Luo Qingtong's brows instantly rose. "How do you know I have that kind of medicine?" Chapter 2733. If Luo Qingtong did not remember wrongly, she should not have told Yi Qianxian that she had refined the pill that could change her gender. How did he know? Yi Qian. Luo Qingtong gritted her teeth and said word by word, "After this matter is over, you better tell me in full detail what is going on. How long have you been lying to me? This bastard." Luo Qingtong recalled how she had been fooled by Yi Qianxian and thought that she was plotting something against Yi Qianxian in the middle of the night. God knows how many brain cells she had wasted. She was always afraid that she would be exposed. She even had to endure this fellow's teasing. She really thought that she was sleepwalking at that time. Yi Qianxian, you rascal. Ugh. Luo Qingtong's angry words had just reached this point when Yi Qianxian stopped her. Then, the man waved his sleeves and in the next second, he brought Luo Qingtong out of Blood City in a hurry. Luo Qingtong's entire body was enveloped in Yi Qianxian's wide robe. From top to bottom, from inside to outside, she was filled with the man's familiar and domineering aura. This man was really too treacherous. Once he saw that she had been exposed, he actually used his handsome man trick. However, she still fell for this trick very much. Luo Qingtong thought so and suddenly bitten Yi Qianxian's lips fiercely. Treacherous, don't think that I will forgive you easily. When we get back, we will slowly settle the score. Is that so? Yi Qianxian's lips curved slightly and his expression was meaningful. All right. Just as well, he also had a score to settle with her. When the time comes, let's see who will be the better one. After this, Luo Qingtong's anger was tormented and dissipated. She took out the fantasy pill from her storage ring and swallowed it, turning back into a teenager again. However, she could not do anything about the birthmark on her face. That birthmark was given to me by Lil Furry. It hasn't woken up yet. Luo Qingtong frowned and raised her hand to summon Little Pig and Lil Furry out. Lil Furry was currently sleeping with its eyes closed. Luo Qingtong looked at Little Pig and said, "Didn't you say that there is a power here that can help it recover? Take it to find it, I'll come and pick you up." Okay. Little Pig agreed without hesitation. It knew that there was something that was very beneficial for both it and Furry's recovery. However, it still had to depend on Lil Furry. In fact, Little Pig had wanted to tell Lil Furry a long time. However, at that time, Yu Mingqian was chasing after her. After that, she was taken to the blood-red projection hall and cut off from it. Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded and let go of it and shouted to Anzi. Go. Be careful not to encounter any danger. As she spoke, she gave the life and death yin-yang sword to Little Pig. She had activated and sealed a sword chi inside. If Little Pig was in danger, it could be released. At that time, it could block a blow for him. Okay, don't worry. Little Pig said as he eagerly walked away with the sword in his mouth. As for Lil Furry, it carried him on its back. Anyway, that guy was fluffy and small, so it didn't matter where it was placed. Luo Qingtong sent Little Pig and Lil Furry away. She was still thinking about how to hide her face. She was about to draw a birthmark on her face, but Yi Qianming raised his hand and put a white jade mask on her face. Use this to block it. Yi Qianming's voice was concise. He thought that the birthmark on Luo Qingtong's face could be changed back, but since it couldn't, she could only cover it with a mask. There was a risk of being seen through if she used a disguise. Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded and put on the mask. Chapter 2734. At this moment, the abandoned continent was a scene of devastation and chaos. All around them were cracks in the ground, mountains, rivers, and trees destroyed by the massive sea of spirit energy. Countless cracks formed on the ground, and a large number of trees and stones fell from the sky and crashed into the cracks. The entire abandoned continent was flooded and destroyed by this terrifying sea of spirit energy. It was like the end of the world. The Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan had already found their disciples. They didn't dare to stay any longer and hurriedly took them away from this place. However, the number of experts in the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan was limited. Taking away their own disciples was already the limit. No one cared about Gui Feng and the others at all. They could only let them escape on their own. But with their strength alone, how could they outrun the power of the sea of spirit energy? Just as they were about to be drowned by the power of the sea of spirit energy, Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian appeared in front of them. Boom! Yi Qianxian waved his sleeve. In an instant, the power of the sea of spirit energy that was rushing towards them was frozen in place. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed and appeared in front of them. Little 7. Gui Feng and the others almost burst into tears when they saw Luo Qingtong's figure appear. They thought that Luo Qingtong had died in the cave world. They didn't expect her to be fine. Little 7, it's great that you're fine. We thought that you... Hu Zhan choked up and couldn't continue. Gui Feng and the others also had tears in their eyes. Ouyang Yingyu rushed over and hugged Luo Qingtong. Little 7. Little 7. It's great that you're fine. She was so excited that she couldn't even be bothered to maintain her usual seductive image. She hugged Luo Qingtong and laughed, jumped, and screamed. She didn't notice Yi Qianxian's cold gaze. Fortunately, Ouyang Yingyu was a woman. Although he was very dissatisfied with her holding Luo Qingtong like this, Yi Qianxian could tolerate it. If it was someone else, such as Tiger Zhan and the others, they would have been sent flying by Yi Qianxian in an instant. Thinking of how Luo Qingtong had fought with Gui Feng and the others when she was still Luo Xiaoqi, Yi Qianxian's expression darkened. However, because he was wearing a mask, no one could tell. They only thought that he was cold and aloof. Thank you, brother. Because they knew that Yi Qianxian didn't want to reveal his name, Gui Feng and the others didn't ask for Yi Qianxian's name when they thanked him. Instead, they used the way Luo Qingtong had addressed him. Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold. He ignored them and extended a hand toward Luo Qingtong. Come here. His voice was very concise, but his displeasure could still be heard. Luo Qingtong was amused. She didn't refuse his action. Instead, she put her hand in his and let him pull her to his side. Let's go. She said to Gui Feng and the others, it's not good to stay here any longer. If you believe me, I'll take you out. Luo Qingtong didn't explain too much to Gui Feng and the others. The existence of the evil blood bracelet was no small matter. She wouldn't let others know about it easily. What's more, there were too many things involved. Even if Luo Qingtong wanted to explain, she couldn't explain it clearly. Chapter 2735. All right. Gui Feng and the others agreed without hesitation. They did not hesitate in the slightest. To them, if Luo Qingtong's words were not trustworthy, then who else could be trusted? How many times had this person saved them in this abandoned continent? Originally, they had only wanted to take in Luo Qingtong out of consideration. Who would have thought that this young man, whom they all regarded as their little brother, would save them from danger time and time again? At this moment, in the midst of this torrential flood, who else could remember them besides Luo Qingtong? Who else would be able to save them at this time? It was too superficial to say whether they believed her or not. Gui Feng and the others only knew that as long as Luo Qingtong said a word, they would follow her closely even if they had to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of fire. Even if hell was right in front of them, they would charge forward without hesitation. As for the other mercenaries, there was no need to mention them. They originally only wanted to borrow Luo Qingtong's meticulous observation skills. They really did not respect and take care of Luo Qingtong. However, this young man had saved them time and time again. If Luo Qingtong had not come to this abandoned continent with them this time, all of them had probably died a long time ago. What else could they use other than their lives to repay this kindness? Although they did not say it out loud, in their hearts, they had already recognized Luo Qingtong. As long as she said it, they would not refute her. They would even die with her. In any case, if it were not for Luo Qingtong, they would have died countless times already. Everyone spoke in unison, and there was no voice of objection or doubt. Luo Qingtong nodded and did not say anything. She looked at Yi Qianxian and said, "Qianren, can you sense where Beiqing and Fengyu are?" This continent was about to collapse. They had to find Beiqing and Fengyu as soon as possible. Coincidentally, as soon as Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian came out of the hole, they saw Guifeng and the others not far away. However, they did not see Beiqing and Fengyu. Luo Qingtong guessed that they had probably been washed away by the spiritual energy storm. After all, Beiqing and Fengyu were chasing after Yi Qianxian. It was very likely that they had found the abyss. The spiritual energy storm was the most violent. Beiqing and Fengyu were the first to bear the brunt of it. They had probably been washed far away. Yes, I can sense it. Yi Qianxian's eyes darkened. He had a connection with Beiqing, Fengyu, and the others, so he could sense that they were in a very good situation. But fortunately, no one was in trouble. With this thought in mind, Yi Qianxian immediately took Luo Qingtong to where Beiqing and Fengyu were. Guifeng and the others followed closely behind them. Luo Qingtong did not ask Guifeng and the others about Chu Lingfeng's situation. In fact, when she found that there was not a single member of the Chu or Lian clan among Guifeng and the others, she knew that they had been taken away by the experts of their respective clans. Since that was the case, she did not need to worry. Chu Lingfeng was taken care of by Chu Jingyi and the others. Snowball was also by his side. Luo Qingtong was not worried about his safety. On the contrary, Chu Lingfeng was safe at this time if she did not have anything to do with him. After all, the commotion she had caused was simply too great. Chapter 2736. Boom! 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 Countless cracks and rocks continued to crumble and collapse. From the starry sky outside, one could clearly see the disintegration of this abandoned continent. If this huge abandoned continent were to follow the general situation of abandoned continents, it would still take a long time for it to disintegrate. However, at this moment, under the gazes of the people from the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Lian clan of the Flying Star, it was rapidly disintegrating into pieces. What the hell is going on? The experts of the Lian family of the Flying Star sector and the Chu family of the Heavenly Wind sector were both shocked and infuriated. Only now did they have the time to ask their disciples what was going on. They had been busy saving people. Chu Jingyi and the others didn't know how to answer. They only knew that after Luo Qingtong was chased by Yuming Lian, something like this happened on this abandoned continent. They didn't know exactly what had happened. From their narration, the experts from the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Lian clan of the Flying Star learned that this abandoned continent wasn't as simple as they had thought. It turned out that the Tianluo grass that the Chu clan and the Lian clan had discovered was just a trace that someone else had accidentally let them find. Before them, there were already people from more powerful forces on this abandoned continent. However, they didn't know anything about it. Not only that, but they had also sent all the young people with the most potential and talent from their clans to this place. Thinking of this, they were suddenly drenched in sweat. They were so close. The inheritance of their clans would be cut off. They didn't dare to imagine what would happen if all the young people from their clans died on this abandoned continent. In an instant, their clan's status in their respective star zones would plummet. After all, they had lost most of their heirs. In the eyes of others, a clan without a successor was like a tiger without its teeth. It wouldn't be able to jump up at all. In the short term, they could still be glorious. However, they couldn't make up for the fall in the future. As the crowd thought of this, they felt both fortunate and fearful. At the same time, they felt a trace of curiosity and gratitude towards Luo Xiaoqi. The people from the Tianfeng Chu family and the Flying Star Lian family were actually a little skeptical about what they had said. After all, how could such a monstrous person exist in this world? With strength that wasn't even in the Zun Qi layer, he was able to see through all the dangers in the abandoned continent. Not only that, he was able to fight against a strong cultivator of the Ninth Earth martial realm. Moreover, he was extremely scheming. This was simply too ridiculous. But all the disciples agreed. Even the young master of the Lian family of the Flying Star sector was no exception. The experts of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan had no choice but to believe what they said. Chu Xiaofeng even took out a large number of spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs to prove it. Seeing the large number of spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs in his hand, all the experts fell silent. Ah, what a pity! An elder of the Tianfeng Chu clan sighed. The other elders of the Tianfeng Chu family and the Flying Star Lian family sighed, too. That was indeed the case. It was truly a pity for such a talented young man to die in this abandoned continent. Chapter 2737. Sure enough, they had been washed away by the violent and terrible spiritual qi si. Fortunately, their real strength was not what it seemed. They were only at LV9 of the human martial arts realm. Otherwise, they would have been killed by the impact of the spiritual qi si. But even so, they were seriously injured. When Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian found them, they were hanging on a broken cliff and could be thrown into the abyss below at any time. Master Young, Master Xia, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were very excited when they saw Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian arrive. But they still remembered that they could not casually reveal Luo Qingtong's identity, so they hurriedly changed their words halfway. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded, took out some elixirs from her storage ring, and threw them to them. Take it. These elixirs had limited effects on the abandoned continent, but it was better than nothing. At least, they could slightly control the injuries of Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others. Of course, this was also because Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others' real strength was too strong. Otherwise, these elixirs would be very effective for their recovery. Not to say that they could recover all of their strength, at least half of their strength could be recovered. But at this time, they could only slightly control the deterioration of their internal injuries. The power of the Great Path in the Spirit Qi Ocean was no ordinary power. The injuries caused by it could not be compared to ordinary injuries. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others' faces were pale. They could not mobilize the power in their bodies. They were completely in a state of disorder. If Luo Qingtong did not give them some elixirs, they would be shocked by the power in their bodies and bleed. This was the reason why they were hanging on the cliff and could not move. But now, after taking the elixirs given by Luo Qingtong, they looked much better. But they still could not use the power in their bodies. Master, let's go. After they recovered, they said to Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded. They really needed to leave this place as soon as possible. Only by leaving this abandoned continent would she have the time to concoct medicine for Bei Qing and Feng Yu. At that time, they would be able to recover their strength. Let's go. Captain, you guys take them with you. Luo Qingtong said to Gui Feng and the others. The latter and the others didn't say anything. They directly went over to help Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others up. Soon, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were all distributed among the group of people. Yi Qianxian waited for them to get ready before he waved his sleeve. With a boom, the group of people immediately rushed towards the depths of the abandoned continent. Yi Qianxian wanted to bring them back to Blood City and leave from there. Seeing this scene, Gui Feng and the others were shocked beyond belief. But soon, they restrained their expressions. With Yi Qianren's strength, it wouldn't be strange for him to obtain the treasures of this abandoned continent. But no one expected that the one who obtained the treasure was not Yi Qianxian, but Luo Qingtong. But at this moment, no one thought in this direction. Only Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others had a strange look on their faces. They thought to themselves, could it be that the evil doctor had obtained the treasure on this abandoned continent? Chapter 2738. While Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianxian, and the others were going against the current in the direction of Blood City, many figures appeared around the abandoned continent. What's going on? Why did this abandoned continent suddenly collapse? A family leader from the Feixing starfield asked. Looking at the forces behind him, it was obvious that he was from a powerful family in the Feixing starfield. The people behind him were all at the peak of the human martial arts realm. After they showed up, the experts and forces of the Flying Star sector also showed up one after another. They were all alarmed by the collapse of the abandoned continent. It was not strange for an abandoned continent to collapse. However, if this abandoned continent collapsed without any warning, moreover, if there was an extremely strong aura of the power of the Great Path coming out of it, it was enough to attract everyone's attention. Not to mention that the power of the Great Path coming out of the abandoned continent was so strong that even many of the top high-class continents in their heyday could not compare. How could the powerful forces from the Feixing starfield not come to check it out? Not long after their figures appeared, a group of forces with auras even more vast and powerful than theirs also appeared. It's the people from the 4-star starfield. Sensing the boundless aura of the other party, which was obviously stronger than theirs, the faces of the powerful forces from the Feixing starfield changed. Among the powerful forces from the 4-star starfield, the most obvious thing was that they already had an expert in the Earth martial arts realm. Every force in the 4-star starfield had at least one expert in the Earth martial arts realm. The people from the 5-star starfield were slightly weaker. Only the people from the top forces and families had experts in the Earth martial arts realm. Most of them had just entered the Earth martial arts realm. Compared to the real experts in the Earth martial arts realm, there was still a gap. At this moment, the people who appeared here were obviously from the 4-star starfield. After this group of people from the 4-star starfield appeared, more people from the 4-star and 5-star starfield appeared. After all, the Feixing starfield was a very prosperous 6-star starfield. It was impossible that only people from the 6-star starfield existed. People from other star fields, whether they were passing by or doing business here, could sense the situation on this abandoned continent and appear here. Seeing this team of Earth martial arts realm experts appear, the people of the Flying Star sector present were stunned. Had the people from the higher star fields been alarmed as well? The collapse of this abandoned continent was actually so unusual. While everyone was stunned, the people from the Flying Star Lian clan and the Tianfeng Chu clan were also visibly shocked. At this moment, their group was very inconspicuous among the group of people who had appeared here. No one knew that they had been here before or that they had entered the abandoned continent. Now that they saw the people from the 5 and even 4-star regions appear, they finally realized that the secret hidden in the abandoned continent was probably even greater than they had imagined. The treasure that the people of the Zhan family wanted was definitely not something ordinary. Everyone was very surprised. They didn't know if they should be glad that they didn't get the treasure or sigh that they missed the opportunity. Chapter 2739. Even if he managed to escape, it would be difficult for him to find peace in the future after causing such a huge commotion. Only then did they know why the Zhan family had concealed their identities and appeared in the abandoned continent. Even when they discovered traces of the Tianluo grass in the heart of the continent, they did not do anything to the people they were investigating. They probably did not want to attract attention from the outside world. However, who would have thought that they would not be able to obtain the treasure in the abandoned continent in the end? Everyone looked in the direction of the abandoned continent. At this moment, a group of people from the 4-star and 5-star regions were also approaching the abandoned continent. No matter what it was that caused such a huge change in the Great Path power, it was definitely very rare. The group of people from the 4-star and 5-star regions were not willing to give up the opportunity to obtain the treasure. As they approached the huge abandoned continent, a group that was more powerful than all of them combined appeared with a boom. People from the 3-star region. When they saw the majestic group of people from the 3-star region appear, everyone's face instantly turned cold. They saw that the group of people was riding on a flying boat. The power that overflowed from the boat caused everyone's face to change color. Not for anything else, but the power contained in the flying boat alone was enough to kill everyone present. Such a tyrannical and terrifying flying spiritual weapon was not something that an ordinary family force could possess. It's people from the 3-star region. And it's a very powerful and terrifying force in the 3-star region. Everyone exclaimed in shock. Especially the people from the 4-star and 5-star regions, they were even more incredulous when they saw this scene. It should be known that people from the 4-star and 5-star regions might come to a place like the 6-star region, but people from the 3-star region usually would not. This was because this place was too barren for them. Why would a flying boat carrying people from the 3-star region appear here? While everyone's faces changed drastically, the eyes of Jean Bayue and the others, who were hidden in the crowd and had not completely left, changed slightly. It's the people from the demonic moon sect. Jean Bayue's face was gloomy. Previously, the people from the demonic moon sect on the abandoned continent had followed them and found the abandoned continent. However, they had thought of a way to cut off the other party's connection with the main force. From the looks of it, the demonic moon sect members had not left. They had been searching for traces of the small group of demonic moon sect members nearby. Of course, it was also looking for traces of them. Who would have thought that they would be able to sense the collapse of the abandoned continent? It seemed that the ancient divine artifact in the abandoned continent would fall into the hands of the demonic moon sect. After all, with the strength they had displayed, these 4 or 5-star regions were no match for them at all, let alone the person who had obtained the ancient divine artifact on the abandoned continent. No matter how powerful the other party was, he was still alone. On the other hand, the demonic moon sect members were all elites. Not only that, but they also had spirit boats and flying ships as support. Jean Bayue and the others frowned. They had originally stopped here to see if they could take advantage of the situation with so many people. After all, the person who had obtained the primordial divine artifact was most likely the powerful black-clothed man. They might not be his match, and they were also injured. However, if they mixed in with the crowd, they might have a chance. Chapter 2740. Jean Bayue was very depressed. He would rather have someone else obtain the ancient divine item than let the demonic moon sect take advantage of it. If the demonic moon sect had not targeted them, how could so many things have happened on the abandoned continent? Not only did they not obtain anything, but they also suffered injuries all over their bodies. While Jean Bayue was gritting his teeth, the demonic moon sect spaceship had already approached the abandoned continent. All the experts from the 4 or 5-star regions were forced to the side by the aura that it emitted. They could not get close at all. As the abandoned continent continued to disintegrate and collapse, only the centermost area was left. It was the core of the continent, where the cave world was located. The other areas had all disintegrated into dust and scattered in the starry sky. As the demonic moon sect spaceship approached, they could clearly see the blood-red city that had been revealed from the abyss that had completely cracked open on the surface. What a majestic and huge city! Seeing the blood-colored city hidden deep in the abyss and the Zhulong that had completely rotted into white bones, the eyes of a LV-6 Earth Martial Realm expert in the evil moon sect spaceship suddenly burst with an incomparably fervent radiance. Could this be the destination of the Zhan family, the place where the ancient divine item is? The level 6 Earth Martial Realm demonic moon sect warrior was very excited. They were ordered to keep an eye on Jean Bayue and the others. However, after the latter and the others entered the Flying Star region, there was no movement. The small demonic moon sect team that had been following them had also disappeared. During this period of time, they had been searching for traces of Jean Bayou and the others nearby. They did not expect to find them at this time. Recalling that they had investigated the purpose of Jean Bayou and the others coming here for an ancient divine object, the eyes of the evil moon sect warrior at the 6th level of the earth martial realm became incomparably excited and emotional. His breathing became heavy. An ancient divine item. Regardless of whether he used it himself or handed it over to the forces after obtaining it, he would have a chance to soar in the future. Furthermore, the Jean family had been so careful earlier. It was clear that this ancient divine item was no small matter. The strong cultivator of the 6th level of the earth martial realm almost laughed out loud. Without hesitation, he ordered everyone to drive the airship into the abandoned continent. At the same time, a group of earth martial arts realm experts flew out of the spaceship. They all scattered around the periphery of the abandoned continent, not allowing anyone to get close. This ancient divine item belonged to the demonic moon sect. Anyone who dared to approach it would be killed without mercy. The group of earth martial arts realm cultivators from the evil moon sect flew out. In an instant, the surroundings were completely silent. The group of people from the 4 and 5-star regions had already guessed that this spaceship came from a faction that was at least a 3-star region. Furthermore, it was not an ordinary faction. Now that he saw this group of earth martial arts realm experts, his heart was completely devoid of any thoughts. These warriors of the earth martial arts realm were not very strong. Most of them were at the 1st or 2nd level of the earth martial arts realm, and some of them had just entered the earth martial arts realm. However, these people were enough to intimidate the powerhouses of the 4 or 5-star regions. Chapter 2741. Needless to say, the people from the 6-star regions were even more so. It was already amazing for their forces to have an expert comparable to the earth martial arts realm. If they could have an expert who had just entered the earth martial arts realm, they would be the absolute overlord among the 6-star regions. Even the forces in the 5-star regions would have to give them a head start. However, there were almost no such forces. Even the head of the Tianfeng Chu family, Chu Tianyi, was strong enough to be on par with an ordinary earth martial arts realm expert. However, he still had not broken through to the earth martial arts realm. It could be seen how difficult it was to break through to the earth martial arts realm. At this moment, there were so many earth martial arts realm experts in front of everyone. There were at least 30 of them. Seeing so many earth martial arts realm experts, no one dared to make a sound. When Jean Bayou and the others saw this scene, they felt even more depressed. Damn it! The experts of our Jean family are not here. Otherwise, we would definitely teach these people from the evil moon sect a lesson. The middle-aged man beside Jean Bayou said coldly. He was the person who had praised Luo Qingtong before. At this moment, he looked in the direction of the evil moon sect's flying ship and gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. Their days of hard work had all been taken advantage of, and they could not do anything because they were seriously injured. It was so King frustrating. I wonder who obtained that ancient divine object. If it's that black-clothed man, he might be able to escape from the hands of these evil moon sect members. A Jean family member said. After all, the scene of Yu Mingqian controlling the people from the evil moon sect was still vivid in their minds. If Yu Mingqian got that ancient divine item, he might have a chance to escape. Of course, this was also a possibility. After all, these people from the evil moon sect were not only strong, but they also had a flying spiritual tool. The power contained in this flying spiritual tool was enough to seriously injure an expert at the 9th level of the earth martial arts realm. If that man in black did not have a backup plan, he would not be a match for these people from the evil moon sect. When everyone thought of this, they felt even more depressed. At this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly muttered, "If only that young man called Luo Shaoqi is fine and obtained that ancient divine artifact." With her schemes, strange abilities, and endless trump cards, she might be able to render the demonic moon sect members helpless. At this point, he sighed and said, "What a pity, what's a pity?" Naturally, it was a pity that Luo Qingtong had no chance of surviving Yu Mingqian's attack. Even if he was lucky enough to survive, it would be impossible for him to obtain that ancient divine artifact. Because without a certain level of strength, it was impossible to obtain such a thing. Not to mention that Luo Qingtong was being chased by Yu Mingqian. It was already not easy for him to survive, so how could he obtain that treasure? Everyone sighed in their hearts when they thought of this. Of all the people they had met in their lives, only Luo Qingtong could make them feel that she was the most unique and unique. Unfortunately, that young man would not be able to escape this time. Just as everyone was thinking about this, in the abandoned continent, Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianxian, and the others had just entered Blood City when they heard the aura outside. Chapter 2742. Rumble. The flying ship that the demonic moon sect members were in seemed to have crashed through the sea of spiritual energy in the abandoned continent and appeared above Blood City. Boom! A group of demonic moon sect members who were around level 4 of the Earth Martial Realm appeared beside the flying ship. That strong cultivator of the 6th level of the Earth Martial Realm led the group, and with a swoosh, they rushed into the Blood City. It's the demonic moon sect members. Luo Qingtong and the rest had already entered the square. When they saw the demonic moon sect members rushing over, Luo Qingtong's gaze froze. She had dealt with the demonic moon sect members before and naturally recognized their power symbol. As for Guifeng and the rest, they recognized the identity of the people who had just arrived and their hearts sank. The people from the demonic moon sect must be very powerful. Especially the figures rushing over at this moment, they were far more powerful than the demonic moon sect members they had encountered in the heart of the continent. Obviously, they were more powerful than those people. As they thought of this, their hearts sank. The demonic moon sect members from before were already powerful enough. These people were even more powerful than them. Did they still have any hope of escaping? They looked at Luo Qingtong, who had risked her life to save them, and their eyes darkened. They made a decision to Luo Qingtong and said, "Little Seven, quickly take your men and leave with this brother. We'll stay behind to cover your retreat." "Yes. Little Seven, quickly take this brother and his men and leave. We'll help you stop the demonic moon sect members." The group of mercenaries knew that they would have no chance of surviving against the demonic moon sect members. However, Luo Qingtong was different from Yi Qianxian and the rest. If they were to stop the demonic moon sect members, even if it was only for a moment, it would be enough for them to leave with their men. Luo Qingtong had saved their lives several times. Now, it was their turn to block the disaster for her. However, Luo Qingtong shook her head and said, "No need, they can't hurt us. On the contrary, you should leave first. Help me bring them along." She was referring to Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others. They had been severely injured in the Spirit Qi Ocean, so they could not use their strength. Luo Qingtong had to send them out of the abandoned continent to avoid being targeted by the evil moon sect. As for her and Yi Qianxian, there was no need to worry. With this man around, she would be fine. They could kill their way out of the abandoned continent. But Guifeng and the others didn't know Yi Qianxian's true strength and wanted to say something, but they were interrupted by Bei Qing and Feng Yu. "Yes. Young master, take care of yourselves." Bei Qing and Feng Yu knew Yi Qianxian's strength very well. As long as his meridians were fine, he could take Luo Qingtong and kill their way out of the abandoned continent. On the other hand, if they stayed here, they would only be a burden to their master and the demonic moon sect's doctors, distracting them. Therefore, they agreed without hesitation. Hearing their words, Gui Feng and the others realized that Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian probably had other ways to leave. In that case, if they insisted on staying, they would only cause more trouble. With that thought in mind, everyone swallowed the words that were about to come out of their mouths. "All right, little seven, don't worry, we'll protect them." Chapter 27:43. Gui Feng nodded at Luo Qingtong and led the group toward the teleportation array in the middle of the square. As they left, the group of demonic moon sect members appeared in front of Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. "Stop!" Seeing Gui Feng and the others rush toward the teleportation array in the square, the demonic moon sect members' expressions changed. Especially when they realized that the teleportation array was a one-time use teleportation array, they became even more furious. They already knew that the treasures inside had been taken away by someone else. The person who took the treasures was probably among these people who were preparing to leave. How could they let these people leave? At that moment, the demonic moon sect leader, who was at Earth Martial Realm level 6, shouted angrily, "Stop them!" The group of people quickly rushed toward Gui Feng and the others, completely ignoring Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian who were standing not far in front of them. In the eyes of these demonic moon sect members, these two people were either extremely stupid and had voluntarily stayed behind to throw away their lives to stop them, or they were simply too weak and had been abandoned by those people. No matter which it was not worth their time and energy to deal with them. Otherwise, they would really play into the hands of those who wanted to escape. Therefore, they did not even look at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. One of the demonic moon sect members who had rushed in front of Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian directly attacked the two of them. "Get lost!" As far as he was concerned, this strike was sufficient to take their lives. However, bang! Yi Qianren waved his sleeves. In an instant, the demonic moon sect martialist's power was reflected back at a speed even faster than his own. With a blood-curdling scream, the demonic moon sect cultivator was sent flying backward, instantly smashing into a large group of demonic moon sect cultivators who were flying over. Bang, bang, bang. Many of the demonic moon sect members were smashed to the ground. The group of Earth martial arts realm experts did not even have room to dodge the demonic moon sect expert who had been sent flying by Yi Qianxian. They were smashed to the ground. As for the evil moon sect martial artist who had been sent flying by Yi Qianxian, there was no sign of life. Seeing this scene, the faces of those demonic moon sect members who were not hit changed. They looked at Yi Qianren with eyes full of shock and indescribable shock. With one strike, he sent a warrior of the Earth martial arts realm flying and dying. In fact, the other party didn't even use his own strength. Just by relying on the shockwave from his counterattack, the other party was already able to exert such might. The face of the leader of the group, who was at the 6th level of the Earth martial realm, suddenly changed. He naturally knew the power of Yi Qianxian's attack. It was definitely not something that could be easily accomplished. His opponent was at least an expert of the 6th level of the Earth martial realm like him. Or even stronger. Previously, he had thought that the other party was stupid and had come to die. Now, it seemed like a joke. "Are you the ones who obtained that ancient divine item?" The leader of the group, who was at the 6th level of the Earth martial realm, asked with a gloomy face. With the other party's strength, it was impossible for those who had left to be stronger than him. If that was the case, the other party did not need to run at all. Just a few people would be enough to kill them. In fact, this was the case. If Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others had not temporarily lost their strength due to the impact of the Sea of Great Path energy, they would not have been able to escape. Chapter 27:44. The group had already run to the center of the square and activated the transportation array. The leader of the group was certain that Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian had obtained the ancient divine item, so he didn't pay any attention to them. After all, it didn't matter if unimportant people ran away. The two people in front of him were the real deal. When Guifeng and the others left, the corners of Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. Then she leaned against Yi Qianming's body and crossed her arms. So what? So what if it's not? When she said those words, in a flash, the cultivator of the sixth earth chi layer was enraged. He looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong and said coldly, "Yes, then leave the treasure behind and I can let you go." If it's not, he sneered at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming, then don't blame us for being impolite. With the other party's strength, it was impossible for the treasure not to be in their hands. The only possibility was that they didn't want to give it up. Since that was the case, they could only take it by force. This expert of the sixth level of the Earth Martial Realm was very confident in the strength of his side. So what if the other party's man was powerful? Unless the other party's strength had already surpassed the Earth Martial Arts Realm and reached the Sky Martial Arts Realm. Otherwise, one attack from their flying boat would be enough to seriously injure the other party. Therefore, even though he knew that Yi Qianming's strength was very strong and was most likely above his own, the leader of the Evil Moon sect remained calm and still had the mood to threaten Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming. In fact, if Yi Qianming hadn't revealed too much strength, he was afraid that the other party would fight to the death. At that time, they wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. Therefore, he agreed to let Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming go after obtaining the treasure. Otherwise, based on their style and behavior, they would definitely kill the other party to prevent future troubles. This cultivator of the sixth level of the Earth Martial Realm thought. He raised his head and looked at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming, waiting for their answers. In fact, he was just waiting for Yi Qianming's answer. However, Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming looked very close, so he didn't ignore each other. As for the latter's strength at the Violet Exalt realm, he didn't take it seriously at all. Looking at his arrogant thoughts, Luo Qingtong's lips curled. Then, she slowly nodded and said, "Oh, in that case, we can only..." She paused and then looked at the cultivator of the sixth layer of the Earth Martial Arts realm who had pricked up his ears. She coldly said, "I won't be polite to you first." Luo Qingtong said and then said to Yi Qianming, "Brother, let's go." In front of outsiders, Luo Qingtong called Yi Qianming by his previous title. The latter doted on her and let her play with him. He stood quietly on the side and didn't say anything, allowing her to play with the cultivator of the sixth layer of the Earth Martial Realm. When he heard her words, his lips curled up. Then, with a swoosh, he grabbed her and flew up. Boom! Yi Qianming's sleeves suddenly blasted out waves of violent energy, attacking the people of the demonic moon sect in front of him in an instant. The violent strength of each of these forces was enough to kill the demonic moon sect members in front of them. When the evil moon sect cultivator sensed Yi Qianming's berserk power, his expression instantly changed. He was at the sixth Earth Martial Realm. Chapter 27:45. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately shouted at the spirit boat in the distance, "Activate the spirit boat and attack." As soon as his voice left his mouth, the gigantic spirit vessel that was hovering in the sky above Blood City began to accumulate its power. This level 6 Earth Martial Realm cultivator was the actual controller of this spirit boat. His command was received by the spirit boat in an instant. At the same time, he and the rest of the demonic moon sect members quickly retreated. They no longer besieged Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming. Instead, they opened up a path for them to escape. Let's see where they can escape to under the attack of the spirit boat. The level 6 Earth Martial Realm cultivator thought to himself as he sneered silently on his face. Boom! A violent and terrifying power exploded in an instant. It was as if countless cannons had been concentrated in one spot, releasing an incomparably terrifying and magnificent attack. All the power on the spirit boat had been concentrated in one spot. With a loud boom, an extremely violent and terrifying attack flew wildly towards Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming. The sound of the explosion produced by the power tore through the sky in an instant, evaporating all the water vapor condensed from the sea of spiritual qi. Their surroundings were filled with terrifying and deep black holes. It was a terrifying sight. An unbearably sharp aura overflowed from within. Rumble. The attack was like a dragon and a sword, like a hurricane and waves, like a storm rising from the ground. It blotted out the sky and covered the earth as it flew wildly towards Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming. Yi Qianming narrowed his eyes at the sight of this. Within his body, a terrifyingly large aura, which could shatter the heavens and earth, was being mobilized. The power of this aura was so strong that Yi Qianming had only mobilized a little of it. It was as if a dragon's roar, a phoenix's cry, a tiger's roar and a wolf's howl had rung out from within his body. The sound was resounding and sonorous. It was like the roar of a sword and halberd and the roar of a dragon. It was bleak and austere. Boom! Just as Yi Qianming was mobilizing the power within his body, a figure suddenly flew towards them from afar and blocked the attack from the spirit boat. Bang! Following the appearance of that figure, the ferocious attack from the spirit boat collided with it in an instant. The frighteningly violent aura of power shot out in all directions, causing everyone's expression to change. Damn it! Who is it? They actually blocked this attack. The evil moon sect warrior at LV6 of the Earth Martial Realm had an ugly look on his face. There was only so much power in the spirit boat, and it could only launch 2 such attacks at most. Originally, he was determined to succeed in this attack, but in the end, it was wasted. Who knew if the last attack would hit its target? They deserved to die. Who was it that didn't care about their lives and actually rushed over to block such an attack? The level 6 realm cultivator was Yi Qianming's sect's martial realm cultivator's martial realm was martial realm cultivator's martial realm. He stared intently at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming and was about to order his men to attack again. However, at this moment, at the place where the spirit boat's attack collided with the figure, the aura of the aftermath of the collision dispersed, revealing the scene inside. This is, Luo Qingtong looked in front of her in shock. She saw a figure standing at the intersection of the attack, completely unharmed. Yi Qianming narrowed his eyes when he saw the figure. Swoosh! His figure, which had been flying outwards, suddenly flew back and stood at the spot he had just left. It's you. Chapter 2746. When his voice rang out, everyone saw that a group of people had appeared behind that figure. The strength and aura of those people were not the least bit inferior to the figure that had just appeared. There were even a few figures whose aura was stronger than that of the figure that had just appeared. Seeing those figures appear, the LV6 Earth Martial Realm cultivator's face instantly revealed an extremely horrified expression. It was not because of anything else. The figure that had appeared under the attack of the spirit boat was so strong. That was the attack of the spirit boat. One attack was enough to kill an expert below the LV9 Earth Martial Realm. Even an expert at the LV9 Earth Martial Realm would be seriously injured under such an attack. However, that figure was not the slightest bit injured. Not only that, but the aura of those people who had appeared was obviously not much different from that figure's aura. What did that mean? It meant that the strength of those people and that figure was definitely above the LV9 Earth Martial Realm. Above the LV9 Earth Martial Realm. What did that mean? The Sky Martial Realm. The Sky Martial Realm. The LV6 Earth Martial Realm cultivator from the Evil Moon sect was completely dumbfounded. He looked at those figures that had appeared in front of him and the others, completely not knowing what was going on. He had originally thought that someone had suddenly jumped out to die and ruined his plans. Who would have thought that those people's strength would actually be so tyrannical? One had to know that there were not many experts with the strength of the Sky Martial Realm even in the one-star region. The few who did were all in the top forces. The top forces of the one-star region. Who knew how many times they could crush the forces of the three-star region? Even if the Evil Moon sect was already considered a super force in the three-star region, it was still the same. In all their lives, these people from the Evil Moon sect had only heard of the strength of the Sky Martial Realm, but they had never seen it with their own eyes. That was because such experts all stood at the top of the world. They were simply not people that people like them could see. They were not strong enough, nor were they qualified. However, at this moment, there were so many Sky Martial Realm experts in front of them. Everyone glanced over and shockingly saw over a dozen Sky Martial Realm experts. Compared to the number of people on their side, this number was really not much. However, as soon as they thought about the strength of these people, any one of whom could easily flatten the three-star domain they were in, the group of Evil Moon sect members shuddered. They wished they could faint right now. Some people were so scared that they wet their pants and collapsed on the ground, almost unconscious. As for the demonic moon sect expert who was at the 6th level of the Earth Martial Realm, he was so scared that his face turned pale and his hands and feet trembled. When he saw the figure standing in the aftermath of the collision raise his head to look at him, a horrified expression instantly appeared on his face. In the next second, his figure suddenly dashed out and was about to rush outside. Run! Run! He tried his best to encourage the demonic moon sect members to run outside to distract the other party, hoping to find a chance to survive. However, as soon as the words left his mouth, bang! The figure standing in the middle of the collision suddenly made his move. In the next second, his body turned into flesh and blood in midair and fell to the ground. Chapter 27:47. In an instant, their bodies were severed at the waist, and their corpses were strewn across the ground. Bang! 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 Their corpses fell from the sky. The people on the gigantic spirit ship in the sky were scared out of their wits when they saw the corpses of the Evil Moon sect members below. In the blink of an eye, they immediately drove the spirit boat and fled outside. Rumble. The spirit ship in the sky rushed outside as if it was being chased by a ghost. At this moment, the size of the abandoned continent had already collapsed to the center of the cave world. The people outside could clearly see the spirit boat flying out from inside as though it had seen a ghost. The 4-, 5-star, and 6-star regions forces outside had no idea what was going on when they saw this scene. How could this terrifying killing machine rush out of the abandoned continent as if it was being chased by a ghost? What was happening inside? Before they could make any guesses, they saw an earth-shattering attack shoot out from the abandoned continent with a boom. Then, with a loud bang, the gigantic spirit ship, which was like a peerless killing machine in the eyes of the 4-, 5-star, and 6-star regions elites, was crushed into countless pieces by a spirit energy hand that had appeared out of nowhere. It was crushed into a ball by the large hand, and with a bang, it was crushed into countless pieces. The Evil Moon sect's martial artists who had just entered the Earth martial arts realm guarding the abandoned continent did not escape the fate of death. They were all killed by the strong wind that swept up when the large hand rushed out. The crowd of people from various forces who were watching from afar had indescribable shock and horror on their faces. They looked at the spirit ship that had been crushed into countless pieces, then looked at the Evil Moon sect members who had been killed by the strong wind from the attack. They finally knew that an extremely terrifying change must have occurred in the abandoned continent. A force that surpassed the 3-star regions and above had arrived. Moreover, it was an extremely powerful force that far surpassed the top forces of the 3-star regions. Oh my God! The crowd looked at the scene in front of them in shock. Everyone was as silent as cicadas in winter. Everyone clearly understood that this battle for the treasure was no longer something they could participate in. They would not even have the chance to fish in troubled waters. After all, the strength of the person who was able to crush the gigantic spirit ship with one blow was probably beyond their imagination. What kind of person had appeared? 2-star regions. 1-star regions. The crowd guessed in horror. Only Jean Bayou and the others knew that the person who had appeared was far beyond their imagination. Young master. The middle-aged man standing beside Jean Bayou swallowed his saliva desperately. He looked in the direction of the abandoned continent with extreme shock. Yes, it's a Sky Martial Arts Realm elite. Jean Bayou finished his words. They were not from the 4-5-star and 6-star regions around them. They came from the 3-star region. Naturally, they knew that the attack that could crush the evil moon sect spirit ship came from a Sky Martial Realm elite. It was no wonder the evil moon sect members of their minds. Chapter 2748. Even if the Jean family joined forces with all the forces in the 3-star domain, they would not be a match for such a powerhouse. The other party could easily massacre them. The existence of a treasure on this abandoned continent had attracted such a powerhouse. However, powerhouses like them were rare even in a 1-star domain. Why would they appear in a 6-star domain? It had to be known that even they looked down on this 6-star domain. If they did not know that the ancient divine object was here, they would never have set foot here. Not to mention those Sky Martial Realm powerhouses. They might not even go to their 3-star domain. Why would they appear here? Could it be that the other party had also obtained information about the ancient divine object like them? Jean Bayou and the others guessed in horror. While they were guessing in their hearts, they did not know that the other party's purpose was not the ancient divine object at all. Your Highness. The figure in the aftermath of the collision immediately knelt down on one knee after killing the evil moon cult members and the spirit ship. She bowed to Yi Qianxian and said, Situ Mei, greets your Highness. Long live your Highness. As her voice sounded, the power around her exploded with a bang, scattering all the aftershocks around her. The face that was revealed was beautiful and cold. It was Situ Mei, the one who had led the Heavenly Dark Guard outside the True Spill continent to invite Yi Qianxian back to the palace under the orders of the Emperor of the Celestial Capital. Behind her, a group of Celestial Capital powerhouses who were on par with her, even those who had won, knelt down and said, The 18 commanders of the Heavenly Dark Guard kneel and greet your Highness. Your Highness, please return to the palace with us. Your Highness, please return to the palace. A Heavenly Dark Guard commander, who was stronger than Situ Mei, looked at Yi Qianxian and said in a deep voice, Your Highness, your days are numbered. The Emperor has given the order to marry a woman you like in the 4-star skies. This is the Celestial Capital's 100-year plan. Your Highness, please do not be capricious. Yes. As he spoke, Situ Mei's voice sounded. Her pair of cold eyes stared at Yi Qianxian, seeming to contain a myriad of emotions. However, she did not show any of it on her face as she advised, Your Highness, any woman in the world is yours to desire. As long as you are willing, the Emperor will not force you to marry according to his wishes. As long as your Highness is able to forget about that woman whose status and strength are incomparably low, the Emperor will no longer object to you marrying anyone in the 4-way heaven. Your Highness, please return with us. In fact, Situ Mei's heart was very happy. Celestial Capital was Celestial Capital, Celestial Capital, Celestial Capital, Celestial Capital and Celestial Capital. When they had Yi Qianxian, they had Celestial Capital, 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 Se Celestial Capital Celestial to him Celestial All Celestial Capital Celestial Capital. Celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital. But Yi Qianxian did not go to celestial capital, celestial capital. Although this didn't mean anything, it was likely that Yi Qianxian had come to this celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital to heal his wounds. Situ Mei was still very happy. Chapter 2749. Since His Highness didn't go over, did it mean that Luo Qingtong was not that important in His Highness's heart? Perhaps His Highness was interested in her for the time being and wanted to go against His Majesty, so he deliberately found such a lowly person to anger His Majesty. In fact, he didn't care so much about Luo Qingtong. As Situ Mei thought of this, the joy in her heart was indescribable. But soon, the smile on her face froze. She saw Luo Qingtong in Yi Qianxian's arms. The latter was held in Yi Qianxian's arms, looking very serious. It seemed that he was protecting the treasure in his hand, the treasure in his heart. Situ Mei had never seen Yi Qianxian so concerned about a person. Who was this young man? How could he be so favored and loved by His Highness? Situ Mei looked at Luo Qingtong with a cold light flashing in her eyes. She was about to ask about Luo Qingtong's identity when Luo Qingtong's voice suddenly rang out. Brother-in-law, what are they talking about? A lowly woman. Are they talking about my sister? Are you going to marry someone else? Luo Qingtong raised her head, looking innocent and naive. When Situ Mei and the others spoke, she had already guessed their identities. People from Tiandu. Luo Qingtong had long been familiar with the things in Tiandu. Yuelao, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others often mentioned this matter by her side. Last time, when she and Yi Qianxian contacted each other through the 10 Dragons Ring and 9 Phoenix Ring, she had also been to Tiandu as a spiritual body. Although she had only stayed in Yi Qianxian's courtyard, she had been there. However, other than Bei Qing and Feng Yu, this was the first time she had seen someone from Tiandu. These people were forcing Yi Qianxian to return, forcing him to marry and leave behind his bloodline. And he even called her a woman of low status. Luo Qingtong smiled. She was not a pushover. Since these people were using the method of breaking up a pair of mandarin ducks on her head, then don't blame her for making them suffer. How dare she steal her man? Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She was not someone who could only rely on her identity as Yi Qianxian to get back at them. One day, she would fight her way to Tiandu and tell these people who this man belonged to. But now, she was going to collect some interest. Luo Qingtong's voice was clear, and her eyes were full of innocence. She had returned to her previous appearance of Luo Xiaoqi. She was not stupid enough to expose her identity at this time and give these people a chance to target her and use her to restrain Yi Qianxian. There were many ways to deal with these people and vent her anger. Why should she put herself in danger? Let's see how I deal with them. The moment Luo Qingtong's words came out, the group of Tiandu experts frowned. Situ Mei's expression changed abruptly. Sister. Are you Luo Qingtong's brother? She looked at Luo Qingtong and her voice suddenly became much sharper. She just felt that Yi Qianxian did not care much about Luo Qingtong, but this young man admitted that he was Luo Qingtong's brother. If Yi Qianxian came to the 6-star domain for Luo Qingtong's brother, then who could say that he did not care about Luo Qingtong? Chapter 2750. Thinking of this, Situ Mei's heart was suddenly filled with unspeakable shame and jealousy. She looked at Luo Qingtong with eyes full of disgust and coldness. This young man was Luo Qingtong's younger brother. He was really a slut's younger brother, just like his sister, disgusting and disdainful. Situ Mei despised Luo Qingtong in her heart, but on the surface, she tried her best to control her expression, not wanting others to see through it. But who was Luo Qingtong? Her eyesight was unparalleled. Unless Situ Mei could control every nerve and every muscle on her face and adjust her expression like a robot, she would be able to see through Situ Mei's thoughts with a single glance. This woman, was she jealous of her? Because of what? Was it because of this man? Luo Qingtong glanced at Yi Qianxian beside her and snorted softly. This damned man, he always said that she attracted bees and butterflies, and that she was spoiled because of his pampering. She didn't know who attracted more bees and butterflies. Luo Qingtong's lips curved up sweetly, looking at Situ Mei, who couldn't hide the jealousy and coldness in her eyes. Laughing softly, she said with a puzzled look, "Hey, auntie, why are you looking at me with such an ugly and scary expression? Is it because my sister is going to marry my brother-in-law? You also like my brother-in-law?" She looked at Situ Mei, innocently, then suddenly realized, so it's like this. You people are so sinister. I knew it. You're an ugly freak, you don't have the slightest bit of beauty like my sister, and your strength and talent can't compare to her. If my sister was born in Tiandu like you, who knows how many times she would have crushed you. I really don't know where you got the face to slander my sister. So it's because you also like my brother-in-law and want to snatch him away, that's why you deliberately said that. It's a pity that my brother-in-law only likes my sister. Brother-in-law, don't you think so? As Luo Qingtong said this, her hands quietly pinched Yi Qianxian's armpits. I dare you to say no. Yi Qianren's figure stiffened. As soon as Luo Qingtong called him brother-in-law, he knew that the other party was up to no good. This woman was as ruthless as an Azura, and as cunning as a fox. Yi Qianxian didn't open his mouth and just watched her ridicule Situ Mei. In fact, he didn't care about Situ Mei's thoughts at all. Whether she liked him or not, it had nothing to do with him. In his heart, there was only Luo Qingtong. He didn't care about anyone else. But why did this woman pinch him? Yi Qianxian's body stiffened for a moment. He almost failed to control the power that was accumulating in his body and hurt Luo Qingtong. Ever since Situ Mei and the others had arrived, he had been on high alert, ready to make a move at any time, but this woman had still come to provoke him. Did she know that he had almost sent her flying? Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth and looked at Luo Qingtong. Seeing that she wanted to pinch him a second time, he hurriedly raised his hand and grabbed her hands. Then, he coldly said to the group of Tiandu experts opposite him, "That's right, I only love Luo Qingtong. In this life, I will marry no one but her. Unless father agrees to my condition, I will not return to Tiandu. And I will not marry anyone." After Yi Qianxian said this, he didn't forget to pinch Luo Qingtong's hand. Was it good now? This woman, really, was so complacent even when she was praising herself. As Yi Qianxian thought this, the corners of his lips curled up. In his heart, he really liked Luo Qingtong's way of taking him to heart, declaring her sovereignty to others, and not allowing anyone to touch him. This meant that this woman cared about him as much as he cared about her. Chapter 2751. Your Highness. Do you know what you're saying? How can a slut like Luo Qingtong be worthy of you? She gritted her teeth as she spoke. Luo Qingtong's voice rang out leisurely. Yes, someone like my sister isn't worthy, but someone like you, who can't compare to my sister in every aspect, is. She's a slut, but who are you? Someone who can't even compare to a slut, a slut. The moment Luo Qingtong's words left her mouth, Situ Mei's eyes burned with rage. Shut up. Lowly scum like you don't have the right to speak here. Your Highness, since you're so stubborn, then don't blame us for being rude. Situ Mei's eyes were cold. She looked at Yi Qianming. The latter's indifferent gaze towards her just now made her furious. Why? She couldn't even get a single glance from this man. And that woman called Luo Qingtong could be placed in the palm of his hand and protected like a treasure. Even her brother dared to be so presumptuous in front of her. Ugly person, not comparable to Luo Qingtong. Every word that came out of the youth's mouth pierced Situ Mei's body like needles. She was insulted by a youth who was Luo Qingtong's brother, and Yi Qianming even affirmed the other party's words. The jealousy in Situ Mei's heart exploded in an instant. Boom! Her figure swept towards Luo Qingtong in an instant. She dared to call her an ugly person and said that she couldn't compare to Luo Qingtong. Slut! She wanted to see if the other party could bear the consequences of saying such malicious words. Attack! Bring His Highness back to Tiandu. Kill the rest without mercy. Situ Mei's voice was filled with murderous intent. Other than them, there was only Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming left. Who else could she be referring to besides Luo Qingtong? When the 18 celestial capital experts heard Situ Mei's words, they immediately rushed towards Yi Qianming without hesitation. As for Luo Qingtong, if he killed her, then so be it. The other party was the younger brother of that woman called Luo Qingtong. Killing him might be able to sever the bond between His Highness and that woman. Speaking of which, it was strange that His Highness seemed to be possessed by the devil. He insisted on being together with that girl called Luo Qingtong. She was clearly just a young girl from a low-level continent in the 9-star domain. In their own homes, even if they were servants, they wouldn't use a woman of such status. His Highness had really been bewitched this time. With this thought in mind, everyone immediately rushed towards Yi Qianming. Everyone knew that Yi Qianming had fought with Emperor Tiandu before and was seriously injured. His meridians were broken and he wouldn't be able to use his full strength in a short period of time. Furthermore, it was very likely that he would not be able to use his full strength in the future. Under such circumstances, they weren't afraid that Yi Qianming would do anything to them. If it weren't for this, they wouldn't have dared to chase after Yi Qianming with just a dozen people. It had to be known that when Situ Mei went to True Spill Continent to invite Yi Qianming back to the palace, she had directly mobilized the Heavenly Profound Guards. When they rushed towards Yi Qianming, the latter's eyes suddenly turned cold and he prepared to use the strength in his body. The meridians in his body had already been repaired and upgraded by Luo Qingtong. He didn't need to use his full strength to deal with these people. Chapter 2752. Luo Qingtong's voice sounded in his ears. Brother-in-law, let me down. I will let these people know that my big sister is not someone they can casually humiliate. They say that my big sister's strength and status are incomparably low, but the truth is that they are the ones who are truly low. As Luo Qingtong's words left her mouth, Yi Qianxian's eyebrows instantly furrowed. What was this woman doing? Suddenly, Yi Qianxian seemed to think of something. He looked towards Luo Qingtong, and his thin lips behind the white jade mask curled up. Good. His eyes were filled with adoration as he let go of Luo Qingtong. As Luo Qingtong's voice sounded out, Situ Mei's lungs nearly exploded with rage. Shameless boasting! She angrily shouted. This was only an exalted realm youth. Although his strength was unattainable to the people of True Spill Continent, in front of her, he was nothing but a pile of trash. She didn't know where this youth had obtained such a fortuitous encounter. With such strength, he actually dared to show off in front of her. Not only that, but Her Highness was actually allowing this youth to despise her. As Situ Mei thought of this youth saying that she was inferior to that woman called Luo Qingtong, her eyes began to emit a venomous cold light. This youth was truly courting death. Situ Mei had originally been prepared to take advantage of the time when Yi Qianxian was dealing with the 18 commanders to kill Luo Qingtong. Now that she saw this youth shamelessly boast that she wanted to deal with her, the sneer on her face became even colder. No matter what reason this youth had for doing this, whether it was a pretense or a bluff, or whether it was to give Yi Qianxian more time to deal with the 18 commanders, since this youth wanted to court death, then she would fulfill her wish. Absolute strength brought with it absolute confidence. Situ Mei didn't believe that Luo Qingtong could threaten her. Did this youth think that he could frighten her with his clumsy schemes? Did he think that he could force her to not move against him? What a joke. With her own strength, how could she have the chance to play tricks? Situ Mei sneered, not taking Luo Qingtong's words seriously at all. She attacked Luo Qingtong violently. The terrifying gale that was stirred up was enough to kill any martial artist below the earth martial arts realm. The people outside could not see what was going on in the Blood City, but they could feel the terrifying attacks coming from Situ Mei and the 18 heavenly Xian guards. Feeling the terrifying aura hovering over the abandoned continent, their faces all revealed horrified expressions. Even though they were so far away, they had a feeling that they would be killed by this power. From this, one could see how terrifying the aura of this power was. However, so many heaven realm auras burst out in an instant. Could it be that the heaven realm expert that came from the abandoned continent was not the only one who killed the demonic moon sect members? With such thoughts in mind, the expressions on everyone's faces became even more horrified. At this moment, in the Blood City, Luo Qingtong looked at the power that Situ Mei was attacking her. The latter's face was filled with an insufferably arrogant expression. The power of the heaven martial arts realm was indeed very powerful. No wonder she looked down on a martial arts realm cultivator like her. However, the corners of Luo Qingtong's lips curled up. Chapter 2753. Saying that she was trash with low strength and status and looking down on her. Luo Qingtong's smile was enchanting and evil. Then she would let them have a taste of being slapped in the face by trash. Boom! Luo Qingtong raised both her hands. As she raised both her hands, in an instant, the entire cave world and the abandoned continent was filled with turbulent winds and clouds. It was extremely violent. The entire abandoned continent had collapsed until only the core of the cave world was left, which was the surroundings of the Blood City where Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian were. But because of this, the violent spiritual energy ocean's power had all gathered around the Blood City. Layers upon layers of accumulated power, becoming more and more terrifying, more and more serious. Once this power completely exploded, even the Blood City would not be able to suppress it. In the end, the entire abandoned continent would completely collapse. However, at this moment, Luo Qingtong raised both her hands. That extremely dense and terrifying power, in an instant, seemed to have been summoned by something and madly attacked the place where she was. The Blood City that had originally blocked them out, at this moment, did not stop these powers from entering. Boom! These violent powers attacked in an instant, and with a boom, they turned into countless powers and energy, wildly rushing into the evil blood bracelet on Luo Qingtong's hands. When Situ Mei and the others appeared, Luo Qingtong had noticed that the evil blood bracelet on her hands was vibrating slightly. After that, she vaguely felt that she could absorb the power of the spiritual energy ocean outside for her own use, stimulating the power of the evil blood bracelet. Luo Qingtong did not know if the appearance of Situ Mei and the others had caused the evil blood bracelet to sense danger, so through the power of the Blood City, it had formed some kind of connection with the power of the spirit ocean outside. Or perhaps, the Blood City had sensed her danger, so it allowed the power of the spirit ocean to be used by her. In short, she was now able to use the power of the spirit ocean to activate the power of the evil blood bracelet. That was why she had asked Yi Qianxian to let her go. The latter must have guessed this as well. Otherwise, he would not have let her go so easily. With Yi Qianxian's personality, he wouldn't have let her go and let her take the risk unless he was sure that she was safe. Boom! When Luo Qingtong's hands were filled with power, she raised her eyes slightly and looked at Situme, whose expression had suddenly changed. She threw a punch forward. Heaven and Earth Tyrant Fist. Luo Qingtong blasted out a blow. In an instant, the weather changed. The sea of spiritual energy was so dense that it had completely turned into water. Then, under the continuous disintegration and high pressure, it was continuously compressed and brewed. With a wave of Luo Qingtong's hand, it instantly swept out of the blood-colored bracelet. Then, with a loud boom, it charged towards Situme. The latter's blow was of the sky martial arts realm. At this moment, in front of Luo Qingtong's Heaven and Earth Tyrant Fist, it couldn't even withstand a single blow. This was the attack that the woman in the blood-colored battle armor in Luo Qingtong's consciousness had used to destroy the Heavenly Way's attack with a single blow. Countless thunderbolts and the arrival of Doomsday were all shattered by a single punch. Situme's blow was no exception. The so-called tyrant was invincible in the world. The Heaven and Earth Tyrant Fist, even the heavens and earth were no match for it. Boom! Chapter 2754. She tried her best to channel her strength into the attack, but it was all to no avail. In fact, if not for the fact that Luo Qingtong's current strength was not enough and that the evil blood bracelet was severely damaged and the limited power it could release, Luo Qingtong would have been able to kill Situme, with just this attack. But at this moment, Situme, was not having a good time either. Pfft! Situme, spat out a mouthful of blood. Her attack was broken, and in an instant, her body flew back dozens of meters. Not only that, but Luo Qingtong's figure appeared in front of her in an instant. Looking at her arrogant face, she raised her hand and slapped her. This slap is for your disrespect towards my sister. You can't even beat me, and you have the nerve to look down on my sister. Trash with low strength. I really don't know who you're talking about. Luo Qingtong said and slapped Situme again. She used the same strength she used to slap Situme and slapped her back. Situme's face, which had been slapped to one side, was turned to the other side in an instant. As for this slap, I'll return it to you on behalf of my brother-in-law. You want to control his life with just the likes of you. Luo Qingtong sneered. Go back and tell your emperor that Yi Qianxian belongs to Luo Qingtong. From top to bottom, from inside to outside, from body to soul. Go back to Tiandu. Luo Qingtong finished her last sentence and sent Situme flying with a kick. Situme was slapped twice by Luo Qingtong. Before she could regain her senses, she was sent flying again by Luo Qingtong. In order to deal with the power of Luo Qingtong's Heaven and Earth Tyrant Fist, she had poured all the power in her body into her attack. At this moment, he was unable to gather the strength in his body. Facing Luo Qingtong's attack, he was unable to gather even a trace of strength. As a result, he was sent flying by Luo Qingtong's kick without any resistance. The retreating figure looked like a piece of trash that had been kicked away. You! Situme's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She had never thought that her brazen attack would turn out like this. Shouldn't she be the one to kill him, then toss him aside like a piece of trash? Why did it end up like this? The person who was kicked away like a piece of trash was actually her. Situme's body landed heavily on the ground. In an instant, the already severely cracked ground of the cave world was smashed into a huge pit. As her body flew out, there was a series of explosions. The 18 Heavenly Xian Guard commanders were also sent flying in front of her and landed heavily on the ground. Pfft! Everyone spat out a mouthful of blood and lay on the ground. They looked at Yi Qianxian with indescribable horror. Your Highness, your meridians. He was actually fine. Their eyes were filled with indescribable shock. The Heavenly Xian Guard commanders were battling Yi Qianxian. Which one of them wasn't a strong person in Tiandu who could hold down a region? In the end, they couldn't even last one round against Yi Qianxian. If this man's strength was at its peak, such a result wouldn't be strange at all. But, His Highness. Chapter 2755. When one's strength had declined to a certain extent, as long as one used an extremely strong power, it would backfire on them. They had absolute strength but were unable to use it. Therefore, their fear and shock towards Yi Qianxian decreased slightly. Who would have thought that when they were fighting with Yi Qianxian just now, they would discover that there was not the slightest bit of hindrance in the use of the power in his body. Although he did not use his full strength, it was enough to shock them. Because Yi Qianxian did not need to use his full strength to deal with the few of them. How could His Highness meridians not rupture? The group of Heavenly Xian Guard commanders were shocked. Even more shocked than them were the experts who were standing far away. They didn't dare to get close, but they were still paying attention to the scene. They looked at the scene in the distance. When they saw Situ Mei and the 18 commanders attack, the shock on their faces was already indescribable. At this moment, they were already numb. The appearance of a group of Sky Martial Realm experts was already a challenge to their nerves. At this moment, this group of Sky Martial Realm experts was actually defeated. They were defeated. A group of Sky Martial Realm experts. Any one of them was enough to instantly kill all the people present 100 times. They were experts of the Heaven Realm. They were actually defeated. Everyone saw that the attacks of Situ Mei and the 18 commanders were broken, and then one by one, they were sent flying like dumplings. The terrifying aura in the sky instantly dissipated and they were sent flying backwards. It was almost impossible to describe their feelings. A group of Sky Martial Realm experts were sent flying. Didn't that mean that the people on the abandoned continent were stronger than these Sky Martial Realm experts? What kind of strength was that? The crowd could not imagine. They did not even know what the lowest level of Sky Martial Realm was like, let alone the higher level of Sky Martial Realm. Moreover, the power that defeated those Sky Martial Realm experts was most likely beyond the level of Sky Martial Realm. As the crowd thought this, their hearts became even more numb. They looked in the direction of the abandoned continent. They did not know who had defeated such experts. Was it the person who had obtained the treasure? Was this the power of the treasure, or was it the strength of the other party? The places where the Tianfeng Chu family, the Lian family of the Flying Star sector, and the rest of the Li family of the Flying Star sector were all quiet. They didn't dare to imagine what kind of experts they had been with in the abandoned continent. To be able to blow away so many Heaven Realm experts, his opponent's strength had likely reached an extremely terrifying level. After all, even with the help of treasures, if the other party's strength was too weak, it would be impossible for them to deal with so many experts. Not to mention sending them flying. So, that person's strength was definitely extremely tyrannical. At least, he was on the same level as those Heaven Realm experts. On the other side, everyone from the Zhan family had an indescribable feeling. The middle-aged man standing beside Zhan Beiyue looked in the direction of the abandoned continent in the distance and said, "It seems that I was thinking too much before." Earlier, he was still worried that it was extremely likely that the black-clothed figure would be unable to protect that ancient divine artifact. Now it would seem like this thought of his was laughable. The other party had not only protected that ancient divine artifact. It was clear that even if the Emperor came, he would not be able to take it away from his hands. Unfortunately, the other party was the culprit who caused them to fail on the verge of success and miss the ancient divine artifact. If possible, he did not want the other party to obtain the ancient divine artifact. However, it seemed that this idea of his would not be realized. Chapter 2756. In the direction of the abandoned continent, with a boom, the entire abandoned continent exploded. The abandoned continent, which had already shrunk to a very small size, completely disintegrated into countless fragments of dust that drifted into the starry sky. At the same time, the figures on the abandoned continent were completely revealed to everyone. The figures of the Tianxian guards, Luo Qingtong, and Yi Qianxian were faintly discernible amidst the dust that filled the sky. At this moment, Chu Yufei, who was in the direction of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Feixing Lian clan, suddenly said to the elders of the Tianfeng Chu clan, "Elders, the person who obtained the treasure is most likely the man in black who chased after Luo Xiaoqi. If he is really that strong man, what will happen to the Tianfeng Chu clan? You know, Brother Lingfeng and Brother Xiaofeng offended him in order to protect Luo Xiaoqi. If he attacks the Tianfeng Chu clan," Chu Yufei covered her mouth, looking anxious and worried. Only a pair of beautiful eyes flickered with a cold and smug light as she narrowed them slightly. Chu Lingfeng and the others were finished. If the man in black was really the one who obtained the treasure, he might not attack the Tianfeng Chu clan. Even if he didn't, given the fear and suspicion of the elders, Chu Lingfeng, Chu Xiaofeng, and the eighth elder's people were doomed. Chu Lingfeng's young master had reached the end of the line. If the people of the Tianfeng Chu clan didn't want to get into trouble, they could only depose and expel their young master. When the time came, they might just cripple his martial arts and send him to the man in black to appease his anger. However, the man in black might not take Chu Lingfeng seriously. Chu Yufei said this only because she wanted the people of the Tianfeng Chu clan to give up on Chu Lingfeng, their young master. After all, no matter how strong his bloodline power and talent potential were, how could he compare with a Sky Martial Realm expert? Not to mention, that expert could even send a group of Heaven Realm experts flying. As Chu Yufei thought of this, she restrained the cold light in her eyes. However, as soon as the words left her mouth, she heard cries of surprise from the people of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan. "Look! The person who obtained the treasure, it's that white jade masked man. It's the leader of those white jade masked men." Hearing this voice, Chu Yufei's pretentious voice was instantly stuck in her throat. Her prepared speech, which could force Chu Lingfeng and the eighth elder's people into a corner, was suddenly silenced. "It's that white jade masked man," she said in disbelief as she raised her head and looked in the direction of the abandoned continent. Sure enough, he saw Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian floating in the air. They were confronting the commanders of the Heavenly Profound Guards. Seeing this scene, Chu Yufei's mind went blank. The ones who obtained the treasure turned out to be those white jade masked men. And it was the leader of the white jade masked man, who was very close to Luo Xiaoqi. Her gaze was fixated on Yi Qianming, who was dressed in a luxurious and extraordinary robe and was shrouded in an extremely wild and powerful energy. Instead, she ignored Luo Qingtong, who was beside him. It was not Chu Yufei's fault. Luo Qingtong was wearing a white jade mask and was very far away from her. Chapter 2757. At this moment, all her eyes and attention were on Yi Qianxian. Her mind kept echoing, the other party turned out to be a powerhouse in the Sky Martial Arts realm. He turned out to be a powerhouse in the Sky Martial Arts realm. She should have thrown caution to the wind and clung to him. In this way, such a powerful helper and backer would be hers. Chu Yufei's heart was filled with unspeakable regret. She hated herself for not being more clingy before. Even if the other party was gay, he still had to continue his bloodline. Could he really refuse such a weak and pitiful girl who relied on him? As long as she held on at that time and let him think that Luo Xiaoqi's sarcastic words were just slander. At that time, he would naturally believe her innocence and kindness. And as long as she could get a chance, she could climb into his bed and cling to him. She didn't believe that the other party could resist her means. In the end, all of this was ruined. Not only was the other party not her helper, but Luo Shaoqi's helper. Wait. Thinking of this, Chu Yufei's face suddenly stiffened. She suddenly remembered that she just said in front of the elders that the person who obtained the ancient divine object might be the black-clothed man and would be unfavorable to the Tianfeng Chu family. But now it was clear that the person who obtained the ancient divine object was the white jade-masked man. Then the other party wouldn't be unfavorable to the Tianfeng Chu family. Because Luo Shaoqi was there, she would definitely protect Chu Lingfeng and the others. And even if the white jade-masked man didn't like Chu Lingfeng, he wouldn't do anything to the Tianfeng Chu family. So, not only would Chu Lingfeng and the others be fine, but they would also become the treasures of the Tianfeng Chu family. After all, with Luo Shaoqi's relationship, they could have such a strong backer. Not only would Chu Lingfeng and the others be fine, but they would also be worshipped by the Tianfeng Chu family. Sure enough, just as she thought of this, she heard Chu Xiaofeng's ecstatic voice. Ha! If it's that person, then Shaoqi might also be fine. Chu Xiaofeng, Chu Jingyi, and the others looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming with excitement. Chu Xiaofeng sneered as he looked at Chu Yufei and said, some people think that the person who chased after Little Seven obtained that treasure. So what? Are you disappointed? Chu Yufei. How much do you want our Tianfeng Chu family to suffer? He actually dared to say such alarmist words. If our Tianfeng Chu clan is destroyed by other clans, what good will it do you? What an ungrateful wretch. Chu Yufei's face instantly paled when she heard Chu Xiaofeng's words. She never thought that the one who got the treasure would be the white jade-masked man. He had no way of retorting to Chu Xiaofeng's words. The group of Tianfeng Chu elders also looked at her suspiciously. Chu Yufei's words were indeed suspected of instigating them to deal with Chu Lingfeng and the Eighth Elder's faction. However, this wasn't the time to care about this. The Tianfeng Chu elders looked at Chu Xiaofeng and the others excitedly and asked, "Do you know that person?" They looked at Yi Qianming. "We don't know him, but one of our friends is very familiar with him. It's just that Chu Yuqing and the others wanted to kill her and almost killed the young master. Elders, you must uphold justice for us." Chu Xiaofeng's words instantly made Chu Yuqing and the others' faces as white as a whitewashed wall. If Chu Xiaofeng and the others had complained before, they might have been able to resolve it through the power of their respective clans. But now, they used Luo Shaoqi's name to say it. Chu Yuqing and the others knew that they were finished. Even if it was to curry favor with that Sky Martial Realm expert, the elders wouldn't let them go. They couldn't deal with Chu Lingfeng anymore. Everyone was paralyzed on the ground. Luo Qingtong didn't know the situation here. Chapter 2758. Their bodies were hunched over and the aura of their power had become very strange in an instant. Luo Qingtong could not describe that feeling. It was as if something was brewing among them. It made her feel very uncomfortable. "Qianren, you have to be careful." She narrowed her eyes slightly and reminded Yi Qianxian. The latter nodded silently and raised his hand to protect her behind him. "Don't make any more moves later. This is not the time for you to fight with them." Yi Qianxian's voice was slightly deep. He did not doubt Luo Qingtong's ability and strength at all. However, the strength of the Sky Martial Arts realm was really too strong. It was not something that ordinary people could compare to. Luo Qingtong had used the power of the hegemonic fist of heaven and earth to send Situ Mei, flying. This was already her limit. She might not be able to use such power later. Situ Mei, and the 18 commanders would not give her another chance. Most importantly, the change in the aura of Situ Mei, the 18 commanders and the others gave him a very bad feeling of danger. Yi Qianxian rarely felt such a feeling of danger. However, when he did, it meant that the other party had something that was enough to threaten him. What could it be? Given the strength of Situ Mei and the others, even if there were another 100 of them, they might not be able to do anything to him. Yi Qianqian's brows furrowed. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed some aura and his expression changed abruptly. Qin Tong, you must follow closely behind me later. Don't leave me. Yi Qianqian's voice had become solemn and urgent. Luo Qingtong's heart skipped a beat. Just as she was about to ask him what was wrong, she sensed that the aura of Situ Mei and the others suddenly rose abruptly. Then, with a boom, their aura suddenly exploded in an instant and poured into the circle that they had formed. Boom! 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 Streaks of violent aura rose violently in an instant, and then gathered in one place. Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes were opened, and she could clearly see that Situ Mei and the others were injecting their auras into the circle they were in. Shockingly, there were also streams of life force. Situ Mei and the others were actually using their own life force as a sacrifice to raise their own strength. Not only that, when their auras were injected into the circle, the aura of the circle changed instantly. A faintly discernible shadow instantly appeared within the circle as if it had traversed the void. As Situ Mei and the others poured in their auras and vitality, Luo Qingtong discovered that what they had set up was actually an array formation. They were using their bodies to form a formation, using their own strength and vitality as the power to summon something. Luo Qingtong's expression suddenly changed. At this moment, Situ Mei and the others' strength had already reached their peak. At the same time, the life force they had injected into the formation was also extremely huge. Luo Qingtong's preliminary estimate was that they had injected at least 100 years of life force. With such a huge amount of life force and strength, just to summon a shadow, how strong was the other party? What were Situ Mei and the others summoning? Just as Luo Qingtong's expression changed slightly, Yi Qianxian looked at the shadow that was faintly discernible in the circle formed by Situ Mei and the others, and his expression was indescribably solemn. Father. Chapter 27:59. As soon as the other party's figure appeared, he immediately sensed the aura. This aura was none other than the Emperor of Tiandu. Situ Mei and the others used their own strength and vitality to summon the incarnation of the Emperor of Tiandu far away in Tiandu. Seeing the huge figure in the sky, the majestic and domineering aura instantly filled the entire starry sky where Luo Qingtong and the others were. Even the people from the various forces who were far away and watching the scene here had a terrifying feeling of being strangled by the throat. That terrifying figure seemed to have a huge power that could kill them with a single thought. No one saw it with their own eyes, but for some reason, their hearts were all shrouded in this kind of shadow. Their foreheads and backs were all dripping with cold sweat. Some people who couldn't bear this pressure instantly rolled their eyes and fainted. A group of human martial realm and even earth martial realm warriors. The moment that figure appeared, some people actually fainted from fear. From this, it could be seen how vast and boundless the power carried by this shadow was. Yi Qianqian's pupils contracted violently. Divine Sense Incarnation. He looked at the huge figure that appeared above Situ Mei and the others. Father, you really put in a lot of effort to catch me. The Divine Sense Incarnation required a part of one's strength and divine sense to be sealed in a spiritual weapon. If someone activated this spiritual weapon, the Emperor of Tiandu far away in Tiandu would be able to use the connection of this spiritual weapon to control the actions of the incarnation in an instant. And the one that appeared here was the Emperor of Tiandu's Divine Sense Incarnation. The Divine Sense Incarnation consumed a lot of strength, and when it was sealed in the spiritual weapon, the Emperor of Tiandu's own strength would be weakened and reduced to a certain extent. Yi Qianming didn't expect the Emperor of Tiandu to use the Divine Sense Incarnation in order to bring him back. If he had not guessed wrongly, other than Situ Mei, and the other celestial capital experts who were searching for his whereabouts all had such a spirit artifact on them that could summon the celestial capital emperor's spirit artifact. As he thought of this, Situ Mei, and the others on the other side had already wiped the blood from their lips. Situ Mei looked at Yi Qianming and said in a low voice, "Your Highness, the Emperor has ordered us to bring you back at all costs. Please don't struggle anymore. As for you..." She sneered at Luo Qingtong and said coldly, "Bewitching His Highness. As the younger brother of that slut, Luo Qingtong, you deserve to die." Situ Mei's face was as ferocious as a demon's. She didn't know how Luo Qingtong had defeated her. Perhaps there was something strange about this abandoned continent. Or maybe it was because of the Blood City just now. But no matter what the reason was, she had been slapped in the face by a young man in the Venerable Realm. Moreover, the other party was actually Luo Qingtong's younger brother. That woman whom she hated so much that she wished she could kill, her younger brother, ruthlessly slapped her twice and even sent her flying with a kick. Situ Mei had never suffered such humiliation before. Among the many noble ladies of Tiandu, there weren't many who could be compared to her. She had always been proud of her strength and family background. Chapter 2760. Just thinking about it made Situ Mei want to go crazy. Her gaze was like a poisonous snake's tongue, licking Luo Qingtong's body. She then knelt down respectfully in front of Emperor Tiandu's spiritual incarnation. "Your Majesty. Your Majesty, please kill the person who bewitched Her Highness and welcome Her Highness back to the palace. Your Majesty, please take action." The voices of the 18 commanders also rang out. At this moment, Emperor Tiandu's spiritual incarnation was completely formed. His gaze instantly focused on Luo Qingtong. "You are that woman's brother." Emperor Tiandu's voice was cold. The moment he was summoned, his consciousness had already been injected into this spiritual incarnation. At the same time, his own strength was also injected into it. At this moment, his voice was mighty, looking down on Luo Qingtong like a god. His eyes were full of disgust. The other party was that woman called Luo Qingtong's brother. It was that woman who caused Yi Qianming to no longer accept his orders. She even defied his orders and refused to return to Tiandu with him. Emperor Tiandu thought about it and instantly looked at Luo Qingtong with eyes full of killing intent. "Return to the palace with me. I can spare her life." He looked coldly at Yi Qianming. "But you have to break all ties with that woman and obey my orders to marry her." Before Yi Qianming could speak, Luo Qingtong's voice suddenly sneered. "Smelly old man, is your brain damaged? You want my brother-in-law to break all ties with my sister? Who do you think you are? Besides, you are not qualified to kill me." Luo Qingtong's gaze was cold. What she hated the most was others threatening her. When she was weak in her previous life, countless people threatened her that if she did not obey their orders and was not used by them, she would die without a burial place. In the end, they died in her hands. Luo Qingtong was a person who was never bound by ethics or morals. She only had two standards for dealing with people: those who treated her well and those who didn't. Those who treated her well, she would naturally repay them 100-fold. Those who treated her badly, even if they were her blood relatives, she would not let them off easily. At this moment, Emperor Tiandu was treating Yi Qianxian as a tool, wanting to seize the greatest benefits before his death, which really disgusted her. Not to mention that the other party didn't treat Yi Qianxian as his son. Even if he really did it for the good of Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong wouldn't give him any face. Who wasn't born and raised by their parents? Why should I be humiliated by you? She even used her to threaten Yi Qianxian. Luo Qingtong only had 4 words to say to this, and that was, F*CKU. She raised her hand and pointed a middle finger at Emperor Tiandu. You want to separate my elder sister and brother-in-law? Dream on. Let me tell you, my elder sister and brother-in-law are determined to be together. Not only will they be together in this lifetime, they will also be together in every lifetime. Smelly old man, you don't need to care so much. When her words came out, Emperor Tiandu's face instantly became furious. Shut up. The corners of Yi Qianqian's lips curled up. He liked Luo Qingtong's pride and arrogance when she protected him, loved him, and cared about him. He was not afraid of the difficult road ahead, not afraid of the wind and frost of swords, not afraid of strong enemies surrounding him. He was only afraid that she would first give up on him. He was afraid that she would not be willing to persevere with him, afraid that she would not trust him enough, afraid that after he turned around, she would give up and leave. Chapter 2761. I won't let her go. Yi Qianqian's voice was cold. He looked indifferently at the furious Emperor of Tiandu and said coldly, Father, if you didn't hear me clearly, I'll say it again. I will only be with Luo Qingtong in this life and for all eternity. My wife, the one who will live and die with me, can only be Luo Qingtong. There is no one else. Good. The Emperor of Tiandu smiled instead of being angry. Since that's the case, don't blame me. Boom. In an instant, he charged towards Yi Qianren. As he attacked, in an instant, the stars in the heavens and the earth moved, and space shattered. In the starry sky, the Milky Way hung upside down and countless hurricanes and waves suddenly appeared in the sky. Terrifying spiritual chi vortexes filled the sky as they swept wildly in the direction of Yi Qianxian. This kind of power was not much inferior to when the abandoned continent had completely crumbled and collapsed. The waves of power that Situ Mei and the others had unleashed earlier paled in comparison to the Emperor of Tiandu's attack. If their waves of power were a small lake or a small river, then the Emperor of Tiandu's attack was a raging sea. It was boundless and boundless. Its power was monstrous and terrifying. Boom! Seeing the Emperor of Tiandu's attack coming, the power around Yi Qianqian's body moved without wind. With a boom, it was as if a giant kunping had leaped out of the sea. Yi Qianqian's body instantly thundered like a tsunami. Then, the power in his body met the Emperor of Tiandu's attack. Countless roars of tigers, leopards, and dragons, accompanied by the cries of phoenixes, rushed toward the Emperor of Tiandu's attack. The power around Yi Qianqian's body formed a myriad of divine beasts. Its power and strength were not much inferior to the Emperor of Tiandu's wolf. Boom! Their attacks collided in an instant. Yi Qianqian's meridians instantly emitted a cracking sound. His expression didn't change. He was about to continue exerting force. Even if his meridians were to break, he was going to destroy Emperor Tiandu's divine sense incarnation. But at this moment, Situ Mei and the others rushed towards Luo Qingtong. 18 heavenly profound guard commanders and Situ Mei. Even if Luo Qingtong could use the tyrant fist of heaven and earth, she still wouldn't be able to deal with them. What's more, the abandoned continent had already collapsed. Luo Qingtong couldn't use the heaven and earth tyrant fist again. She didn't have that much strength left to use. Yi Qianqian's expression changed slightly. He immediately retracted the power he was about to unleash. If he unleashed all of his power, all of his meridians would immediately break. At that time, even if he destroyed Emperor Tiandu's divine sense avatar, he would not be able to protect Luo Qingtong from the attacks of Situ Mei and the others. He couldn't use all of his strength. Yi Qianqian's eyes were cold. He raised his hand and clashed with Emperor Tiandu's divine sense avatar. With a boom, his body was knocked back several hundred meters by the power of Emperor Tiandu's divine sense avatar. In a situation where he couldn't use all of his strength, with only 30% of his meridians recovered, he was no match for Emperor Tiandu's divine sense avatar. One had to know that Emperor Tiandu had projected all of his strength and divine sense. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to catch him. If Yi Qianxian was alone, he could easily defeat Emperor Tiandu's divine sense avatar and escape. After all, Emperor Tiandu didn't know that his meridians had recovered and he could use all of his strength again. But what about Luo Qingtong? Yi Qianxian's expression was grave. Chapter 2762. Qianren, to the left. Luo Qingtong's voice rang out in Yi Qianxian's mind. He instinctively shifted to the left. He had absolute faith in Luo Qingtong. Before he knew what she was going to do, his body reacted first and he teleported over. Boom! Yi Qianxian had just moved to the left when an attack from Emperor Tiandu's consciousness slammed into where he had been standing and extended to the right. If Yi Qianxian had been there, he would have had to take the attack head-on. This was because Emperor Tiandu's consciousness clone had appeared on his left. However, because of Luo Qingtong's warning, Yi Qianxian didn't take the attack head-on. Instead, he stood in front of Emperor Tiandu's consciousness clone. The moment the latter appeared, it was as if he had directly collided with Yi Qianren and was sent flying with a single move. If not for the fact that he couldn't use his full strength, Yi Qianxian would have been able to scatter Emperor Tiandu's consciousness clone with this move. Qingtong. Yi Qianxian's eyes flashed as his voice rang out in Luo Qingtong's mind. You can see his attack. His eyes were burning. Yi Qianxian hadn't expected Luo Qingtong to be able to see through Emperor Tiandu's attack. Even he couldn't see through Emperor Tiandu's attack, but Luo Qingtong could. Luo Qingtong shook her head at Yi Qianxian's words. It's not that I can see it, it's that I can foresee it. Luo Qingtong's lips quirked. She had to thank the new eye technique she'd activated on the abandoned continent, foresight. The power of Luo Qingtong's eye technique was linked to her strength and mental strength. With her current strength, it was impossible for her to see through Emperor Tiandu's attacks. However, Luo Qingtong's latest pupil technique, foresight, allowed her to see what happened in the next second that was related to her. Under such circumstances, Emperor Tiandu's attack was naturally in her eyes. Although he couldn't open up 3D mode like his eyes and analyze the Tiandu Emperor's attack power, range, weakness, speed, and so on clearly, he could counterattack and counterattack. But for Yi Qianxian, as long as he was given a hint, with his strength, he would definitely not lose to the other party. It was a pity that the number of times she could foresee was limited. After all, it consumed too much mental power. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong would have cooperated with Yi Qianxian and played him to death. The Emperor's expression instantly changed after seeing Yi Qianxian's attack. He didn't expect Yi Qianxian to be so coincidental. Yi Qianxian dodged his attack a second before it was about to hit him. Not only that, Yi Qianxian even appeared right where he was about to go. Was this a coincidence? Emperor Tiandu's expression was grave. He was very wary of this son of his. Yi Qianxian had been different from ordinary people since he was young. With the heavenly veins body, his strength was constantly growing. Emperor Tiandu didn't even know when his son had become strong enough to fight against him. If it weren't for the hidden dangers behind his heavenly veins body, Emperor Tiandu didn't know how much Yi Qianxian could have grown. Such a son was both a help and a hidden danger. Unfortunately, he couldn't control him. Chapter 2763. Boom! His figure once again charged towards Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. However, under Luo Qingtong's foresight, he was no longer able to gain any advantage. Bang! Another attack slammed into him, and his figure was scattered once again. The projection of the divine will incarnation faded a lot. After all, this power was previously sealed in his spiritual artifact. After being stimulated by Situ Mei and the others, it condensed and condensed. Now that it had been scattered by Yi Qianxian, the power within had naturally dissipated. When the power of his projection completely dissipated, his divine will incarnation would also completely disappear. As Emperor Tiandu thought of this, his expression became even more gloomy. He looked in Yi Qianxian's direction and felt that all of this was not so simple. The first time could be said to be a coincidence, but why was he able to predict his attack and actions the second time? For someone like Emperor Tiandu, he would not wait until the third time to react. His gaze was fixed on Luo Qingtong. He felt that all of this was related to her. One had to know that Yi Qianren didn't manage to escape from his first attack. This meant that it was not him. It was this young man. Luo Qingtong's younger brother. Emperor Tiandu's gaze was fixed on Luo Qingtong in shock and disbelief. The latter only smiled sweetly at him, then raised her hand and gave him the middle finger. Her meaning was very obvious. How was it? Did you feel good? Luo Qingtong's middle finger said silently. Emperor Tiandu did not know what Luo Qingtong meant by giving him the middle finger, but when he thought of how Luo Qingtong had scolded him earlier, he knew that this was not a good sign. Immediately, his eyes darkened. Bastard! His voice was cold as he charged towards Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian again. This time, his target was Luo Qingtong. Regardless of whether she was the culprit or not, Emperor Tiandu could not let Luo Qingtong off just based on her contempt for him. However, Luo Qingtong was behind Yi Qianxian, and the man's figure was always the first to block her. Coupled with Luo Qingtong's foresight, Emperor Tiandu could not deal with Luo Qingtong at all. Instead, Yi Qianxian had seized the opportunity to scatter his figure twice in a row. Emperor Tiandu's face finally changed when he saw that his figure was becoming fainter and fainter. He could no longer maintain his divine will incarnation. He was certain that Luo Qingtong had seen through his attack. A young man at the Exalt realm was actually able to see through his attack. This was simply a fantasy story. But now, this fantastical thing had happened in front of him. The Tiandu Emperor had no choice but to believe it. Good. Good. You're very good. Emperor Tiandu's face was cold. He looked coldly at Luo Qingtong behind Yi Qianming and then, with a boom, his figure completely exploded in an instant. A terrifying violent force raged in an instant and blasted towards Yi Qianming. At the same time, a vortex silently appeared where Luo Qingtong was and sucked her in. If you want to find her, go back to Tiandu. Emperor Tiandu's cold voice came from the depths of the vortex. Chapter 2764. Once Luo Qingtong was transported to Tiandu, she would fall into the hands of the Emperor of Tiandu and her identity might be exposed. If the Emperor of Tiandu knew that she was Luo Qingtong, he would not let her go and use her to threaten Yi Qianming. How could Luo Qingtong let such a thing happen? Seeing that the huge whirlpool was about to take her back to Heaven Capital, Luo Qingtong slashed out with the life and death yin-yang sword in her hand. The power of life and death contained in her life and death sword was the most powerful invisible force in the world. Although the Emperor of Tiandu was powerful and Luo Qingtong could not break the huge vortex, she could still leave a mark on it. This was enough for Luo Qingtong. Boom! The crimson pupils in her eyes glowed brightly as she pushed her eye technique to its strongest level. She saw it. Luo Qingtong's eyes shone brightly. Following the small mark left by her life and death sword, Luo Qingtong saw a point to escape from this huge vortex. Boom! Her figure slammed into that point in an instant. Humph! You overestimate yourself. The Emperor of Tiandu's voice was cold. He sat in the golden palace outside the clouds and watched as Luo Qingtong's figure was about to escape from the vortex. He raised his hand and with a boom, a huge spiritual hand shot out from the depths of the vortex and grabbed at Luo Qingtong. This was because this huge vortex was connected to the Emperor of Tiandu's body. Unless Luo Qingtong had enough strength to resist the Emperor of Tiandu, she would not be able to leave even if she could see through this vortex. The Emperor of Tiandu had countless ways to capture her. Seeing this scene, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly shrank. At this time, a huge skeleton floated in the starry sky where the abandoned continent had collapsed. There were two small dots on its skeleton, appearing so inconspicuous and small. One was pink, the other was white. Aya, you little dumpling, why did it take you so long to absorb the power of Torch Dragon's primordial core? We still have to find Master. Wake up. Little Pig stood beside Xiao Tuanzi, its four little hooves pacing on the skeleton with all its might. Only the heavens knew that Xiao Tuanzi would wake up after absorbing the power of the Torch Dragon's Yuan Dan. By then, it would be able to get a share of the loot. In the end, after the little ball absorbed the energy, it fell into a deeper sleep. Not only that, his body seemed to be glued to the Torch Dragon skeleton. Since Little Pig couldn't take it away, he couldn't leave either. Because the entire Torch Dragon skeleton seemed to be enveloped by an invisible force, Little Pig couldn't leave at all. What the hell was this little dumpling doing? Little Pig was anxious to death. It could sense that Luo Qingtong seemed to be encountering some danger. This was the unique connection between contracted beasts and their masters, allowing them to sense Luo Qingtong's danger at the first moment. Therefore, Little Pig jumped onto Tuanzi's body while squealing. It raised its little hoof and began to slap Tuanzi. Hey! You little brat, wake up! Master is in danger. As it said this, it suddenly felt that the huge Torch Dragon skeleton under its body was faintly trembling. Then, the trembling became more and more frequent. In the next second. Chapter 2765. Boom! The Torch Dragon skeleton shattered into countless fragments in an instant. A ball of blazing light instantly enveloped Little Pig and Xiao Tuanzi. Seeing the changes in Xiao Tuanzi, Little Pig was dumbfounded. Damn! You actually advanced in rank. No wonder you couldn't wake up. Let's go to Master. As Little Pig spoke, Xiao Tuanzi, whose body had doubled in size, and the tuft of hair on his head had turned into two. He immediately chirped. Then, with a swoosh, their figures disappeared from the starry sky and appeared beside Luo Qingtong. This was the space shuttle technique that Xiao Tuanzi had comprehended after advancing. It was a sector beast. It could shuttle through tens of thousands of spaces like a fish in water, unhindered by any force. At this moment, Luo Qingtong was looking at the giant spiritual energy hand that Emperor Tiandu had sent over. Her eyes were indescribably solemn. Then, with a boom, she felt a ray of light suddenly blossom beside her. Then, Little Pig and Xiao Tuanzi appeared in front of her. Let's go, Master, let's leave this place immediately. Little Pig said in Luo Qingtong's mind. Xiao Tuanzi has advanced to the growth stage. The sector beast space can be opened and we can be instantly transferred back to the true Spill continent. Let's leave this place immediately. Little Pig also noticed the giant palm that Emperor Tiandu had sent over. F***ck, this is too shameless. The opponent's strength was many levels higher than the Sky Martial realm. He actually dared to attack Luo Qingtong, who was only at the Purple Venerable realm. Where was his face? Damn! Little Pig's voice sounded. Luo Qingtong also saw him and Xiao Tuanzi. Knowing that Xiao Tuanzi had regained its strength and had advanced to the growth stage, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed sharply. She could now open the Sector Beast space to return to the true Spill continent. She looked at the giant spiritual energy hand that was rushing towards her and said with a murderous look in her eyes, "Okay. Let's go." As she spoke, her figure was enveloped in the light of Xiao Tuanzi and Little Pig. At the same time, the light in Luo Qingtong's eyes was abnormally cold and evil. Endless time, eternal river, open. As soon as Luo Qingtong shouted, an extremely dazzling river of time and space unfurled within her body. Luo Qingtong's consciousness appeared in it. Without hesitation, she pointed a finger at the depths of the galaxy, at the domineering woman in blood-red armor at the end of the line. Boom! Luo Qingtong's gaze changed at once. Her gaze instantly became incomparably bloodthirsty, cold, and domineering. The crimson light in the depths of his eyes was like countless rivers of blood, cleansing and flowing elegantly. Trying to kill me. Looking at the giant spiritual energy hand that was rushing towards her, Luo Qingtong's gaze had completely changed. It was incomparably dangerous. The two evil blood bracelets on her hands, which had been motionless after the eruption, instantly trembled violently as if they had gone crazy after sensing her aura. Streaks of crimson light crazily flowed from the bracelets, as if they were fiercely narrating something. That buzzing tremor was like a wail of anguish. "I know, I don't blame you." Chapter 2766. These were the injuries they'd suffered in order to protect her back then. If that wasn't the case, with their power, what could that spiritual energy palm be compared to them? It would be nothing more than a speck of light. The coldness in Luo Qingtong's eyes was surging and flowing in her eyes like a substance. "You've done your best. Don't blame yourselves. Protect this lord's body well. In the future, I will restore your glory." As Luo Qingtong spoke, her wrist shook violently. In an instant, an extremely violent and vast power that was countless times stronger than the Emperor of Tiandu's attack erupted from her body. Boom! She threw a punch forward. Tyrant fist of heaven and earth. This punch was incomparable to the one Luo Qingtong had used against Situ Mei. As this punch blasted out, an earth-shattering power erupted from Luo Qingtong's fists. With a boom, the spirit chi palm of the Emperor of Tiandu was shattered. Not only that, but the Emperor of Tiandu, who was far above the golden palace of Tiandu, seemed to have been attacked by something. With a boom, his body shook violently. Then, in the next second, his figure flew backward. Poof! His body slammed into the Nine Dragons' golden chair behind him and fell to the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He had been injured by that power through the connection between him and his divine will incarnation. What? The Emperor of Tiandu was shocked. He looked in the direction of the void in front of him and the scene revealed by the giant vortex. He saw that Luo Qingtong's figure had disappeared into it. The other party had actually broken through his attack and shattered his spirit energy palm. Not only that, but she had also injured him through his own attack. The Emperor of Tiandu was shocked and bewildered. The power just now was so domineering and destructive. Just thinking about it made him tremble. If it wasn't for the fact that they were separated by a great distance and were separated by layers of space, that strike from before would have been sufficient to kill him. What was going on? It was impossible for a young man at the Exalt realm to display such strength. The Emperor of Tiandu's eyes were solemn. He vaguely remembered that when the punch was thrown, the figure of a woman in blood-red armor seemed to appear behind the man. Could it be that the other party had intervened in the battle between him and that young man and rescued him? If that was the case, the other party's identity was definitely not ordinary. That young man was probably not Luo Qingtong's younger brother. If not for this, how could he have met someone like the woman in the blood-red armor, who was born in the 9-star sector and came from a low-level continent? This young man must be a friend that Yi Qianxian had met on the way here. Because he knew about his relationship with Luo Qingtong, he deliberately said that he was Luo Qingtong's younger brother to mock him. Thinking of this, the emperor of Tiandu's face suddenly turned ugly. At this moment, Yi Qianxian had broken through the power of the giant vortex and rushed in. His figure had just been blocked by the power of the emperor of Tiandu's divine will incarnation, so he was a moment slower. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.